Are you ready to purchase or refinance a home? With over 20 years of experience in the banking and finance industry, Andy Pfaffl is more than ready to tackle any concerns you might face during the finance process. He pays for every appraisal, charges one simple fee, and he makes himself available to his clients 24/7, 365.
Call Andy today for a free consultation and experience for yourself the network funding difference of integrity, reliability, and simplicity. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wills.
And I'm Ashley Steigerwald.
We have Angie Mosley with us today.
Good morning.
Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
We are here to talk about etiquette.
Dun, 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 dun.
So you are with, what group is it?
I own the National League of Junior Cotillions, Greenville chapter that meets at Thornblade. That's my 22nd season coming up.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's impressive.
It's been a long time.
So cotillion, I think, is like a Southern word. Am I wrong?
No, we'll get into that, but my son went through Cotillion with Angie.
Okay.
Yep. And John is getting ready to start.
That's right.
Bless you.
That's right.
Bless you. Yeah, so I remember when we moved here and Tripp was in 5th grade, a bunch of his friends were like, you need to, his friends were like, you need to sign him up for Cotillion.
And I do Cotillion, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, and I was like, hoop skirts and ruffles and like, introducing Mary Elizabeth.
Yes, I'm imagining the
Catherine.
debutante.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it is a little bit of that, but it's not that. So talk to us about Cotillion.
I do think that there is a misconception out there because traditionally speaking, Cotillion is associated with the South. And since we are a very transient area here in Greenville County, I get phone calls all the time from folks that have moved into the area, and the first thing they'll say is, I'm from the North. We don't know what this is. And so
we're a rude bunch.
Right. So I try to reassure them that we are, or there's also a misconception that we are teaching children to be snobs. And that's really not what it's about. It's about giving children self-confidence at what is really known as probably the most awkward age, middle school, in social grace, learning how to navigate social situations, both formal and informal, and just feeling more comfortable in their skin, feeling more comfortable with the opposite sex, because they're starting to interact a little bit more socially, beginning at that age. And so that's really the premise of the program, is to build self-confidence and do so in more of a controlled, safe environment, more so than maybe what they experience in a school setting. So my program caters to, as I said, middle school students. The word cotillion, I think, actually means dance, but we are an etiquette and social dance training program. And you can do it for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, depending on when you start. And like I said, this season will be my 22nd season. So thousands of Greenville County students have come through my doors over the years. And there is nothing more, I guess, fun for me than to see children grow in their confidence, beginning in, they walk, especially 6th graders, they walk in the door with the deer in the headlight look.
So is it, is it
and walk out.
Partial dancing?
Oh yes. So we do basic ballroom. We do basic ballroom steps. So we teach the basic foxtrot, which is just like a box step. And then we teach the basic beach shag, the basic cha-cha. My older kids learn the salsa. We learn lots of turns that go with them. And then we do some line dances that, of course, don't require partners. So a lot of boy parents call me and are very concerned that their sons are going to be the only boys in class. And I'm like, no, we have to function with a balanced ratio. So I have an equal number of boys and girls in every class for dance partnering purposes. No one is ever assigned a partner. It's a lot of random, they switch partners a lot, which takes the pressure off of them, allows them to just mingle a lot and get comfortable with that situation. And so from an etiquette standpoint, we're teaching skills that in many ways, I believe they carry with them through life. Some of the skills are more applicable every day than others. For example, we teach them, one of the first things is how to greet and shake hands. We teach them the importance of good eye contact, body language. We teach them the importance of how to make introductions. With my 8th graders, we actually go through an interview skills class, and just because they're on the cusp of going into high school where they might be interviewing for a leadership position, really starting to build that college resume. And so we start addressing some of those skills, interviewing for that first job, because those students are really, my 9th grader just landed her first job. So it was just a year ago that she was getting the lesson on how to make a good first impression in an interview situation. So those are the kinds of things we teach in addition to some of the more formal skills, like we teach the boys proper escort position, how to seat a lady properly. I mean, I'd like to think that manners never go out of style. So we want gentlemen to be gentlemen, and we want ladies to expect that. They want, you know,
I love
and
that.
right.
Yeah.
And so we want ladies to expect to be treated like a lady. And so the gentlemen learn how to go through the refreshment line. They learn how with a lady, with a partner. They learn how to seat her properly. They just learn some basic skills like that that are not everyday skills, but as they get older, I think they find, you know, places that they apply them.
And how to get through a meal.
Yes.
I mean, that was something I was never taught.
Oh,
Of
dining
if you
etiquette's a
have a
big one.
multi-course
Yes.
meal.
Right.
I mean, I remember the first time I
Right.
sat down and there were like 3 forks, and I was like,
Yes.
oh my God.
It's like Pretty Woman.
Seriously,
is.
I was like, I have
It
no
is.
idea what to do, but they learn how to make it through a formal meal, and I've watched him. He knows what he's doing
So
now.
our 7th grade season, well, it's actually 7th and some 8th graders, if they're new to the program, they can join in our 2nd season, is it's called the dining season. And so with a heavy emphasis on dining etiquette. One of our highlights that year, and I will tell you, this is very popular with the boys because, you know, they like to eat.
Yes.
If I feed them, they will come.
Yes.
The 5-course instructional meal. I mean, we go through 9 pieces of silverware. It's really very comprehensive, more than they would ever experience on a normal basis. But you're right. It gives them some confidence of what to do if they go to a nice dining situation, and really, it could be informal or formal. And so we go through 9 pieces of silverware, everything from how to put sugar and lemon in your tea to, you know, what to do with your napkin if you leave the table, kind of thing. So
What do you do with your napkin?
what do you do with your napkin?
Put it on the chair?
You do leave it in the chair. I
Chair,
mean,
okay.
occasionally if you have a chair with arms, some people leave it over the arm of the chair,
Okay.
but standard practice is to leave it in the chair.
What about like during COVID? So like I used to always shake hands when I
Right.
meet people. And now it's kind of that really awkward. Hey. You know?
Yes. So year 21, we navigated a cotillion season in COVID. And so sadly, we had to abandon some of our basic lessons. We had to talk through how to shake hands and greet people, because in the back of my mind, I truly believe we're going to hopefully get back to that practice. So, you know, I didn't really teach them so much the alternative of that. It was just more that we avoided doing it.
Right.
You know, and the interesting thing about the way my program is designed is one of the first lessons they learn is how to greet and shake hands. And then every single class, it's a once a month program. So it's really designed to fit into a busy schedule. So every single class after that, the students line up outside the door and they come into the classroom and they're expected to greet me and shake hands and practice the eye contact and everything that we've talked about. And so that's what's so really nice, is because the first class, they're so nervous and they're looking at their feet. Many of them have their handshakes are very weak. You know, they're just very, you know, it's just a very uncomfortable thing. And it's amazing in the course of the 7 months that they're with me, how they grow in that confidence by practicing it every single month, you know, because it sort of reinforces a little bit of a habit. By the time if they come back for year 2, they really have mastered it. And by year 3, it's amazing. The 8th graders I have really, it's just so easy. They just, it's no brainer.
And you make it fun though, because like the dancing portion, that's always the one where they're like, oh, and I got to chaperone the big end of the year dance, the grand ball, and they're all dressed up. The boys are all in tuxes and the girls are all in their dresses, but they have like games and stuff.
Cute.
They as much as like.
So what age is this?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Okay.
But each age group is its own program. So 6th graders are with 6th graders.
Okay.
7th graders with, and so forth. So.
Well, and I feel like that's good, because a lot of my friends' daughters, they all start dancing early.
Yeah.
But like my boys are all in sports. So
Right.
I feel like they'd get out there and be a deer in headlights, and so awkward.
Right.
Yes.
So the boys are funny because I have some boys that come through, and it's like every other activity. You have girls and boys that it's just not going to be their thing, and that's fine. They do it 1 year and they're done. I have students, and you'd be surprised the number of boys that love it, that absolutely enjoy it more than you think. And you have girls that you would think, oh, this is such a girl thing, that don't like it. So you just don't ever know. It's really individual to the child. I do try to make it fun, because even though they are learning social grace and learning what I consider to be formal manners, they're still children. And so if you don't make it fun, they're not going to
Mm-hmm.
want to come. And so I try very hard. I get the funniest comments. I remember one boy went home and told his mother, and they're always from boys, of course, the funny ones.
Yeah.
He went home and told his mom, and he's like, "Okay, that was not at all what I expected after the first class." He said to his mother, "I just expected this really old lady who spoke in a British accent."
Yeah.
That was his image that I was going to be this
I'm
old
not
lady
gonna
in a
lie.
British accent.
That's what I imagined.
Right. And so we got a good. She called to tell me this because she just thought this was such a chuckle. So for the rest of the year, we just kind of had this, underlying joke of being, I was the old gray-haired lady with a British accent. So, there is a lot of misconception, but I am glad that the children, most of the boys in particular, especially if they do it with a group of friends,
Yeah.
that's very important that the students have other peers in the class that they know, that they tend to have more fun than they think they're going to have. Some of them will never admit it, or some of them reluctantly admit it. But we do a lot of things. Like in class, we rotate through a dance circle. So they do dance with several different partners. And that definitely takes the pressure off. So if they are dancing with someone that maybe makes them a little uncomfortable, whether for whatever reason, because let's face it, that's an awkward age for,
Oh gosh, yeah. Remember
they're
that's when
never
you, like,
stuck
floating-
with that person for very long. Like we don't ever want, parents are always concerned, are you going to partner my child with someone? No, the answer is no. We don't partner at all. It's literally random. And the randomness of it does take a lot of the pressure off.
That does, yeah.
We do serve food at every refreshment etiquette we learn, and then we practice it every class. So, of course, they get that, who doesn't like a snack in the middle of class, right? And then, of course, at the balls, as you said, I find that the boys enjoy seeing themselves dressed up.
They do.
I get the funniest comments from moms when they put their tuxedo in. They say they'll see their son admiring himself. He's got the James Bond look going on in the mirror. So I think they enjoy showing up and doing something that's a little bit outside the norm, outside the baseball uniform or outside the basketball court or whatever. And the girls, of course, it's not a stretch for many of them to want to get all dressed up and just have a special occasion.
And they do a dance with the parents. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember
my favorite night.
And I know
Yeah.
Trip was in 6th grade, so we still hadn't hit that growth spurt. And I'm tall. I'm 5'11", like barefoot, and I was wearing heels, so I'm like 6'4", and so like I was taller than most of the dads in the room, and poor Trip's like trying to dance with his mom.
Yes, we do
cute.
something called what Ashley's referring to is we do something
dancing.
called Parents Dip into Dancing at our February class, which is our last class of the season before our big spring ball event. And it's really just a memory. Trust me, I always tell the parents, I said, listen, this is going to be far more meaningful to you right now than it is your child.
Yeah.
But it is to just create a memory. And so we invite the dads of the girls and the moms of the boys, or it could be a grandparent or a brother or an uncle or a family friend. It really, whoever you choose to send. And they learn the basic waltz. And then they get to practice with their child at class. And then at the ball, they're all given a designated time to come. And we have like the big mother-son moment and then the big father-daughter moment. And it's really a great photo op for the other
That's
parents.
cute.
Yeah.
But again, it's about creating that memory for both the parent and the child. So,
And I do remember, because I was dancing with Trip, I was like, dip me. And he's like, stop it. I was like, dip me? Dip me or I'm going to twerk. And he's like, stop it, Mom.
Only you at Cotillion. I'm going to twerk.
Dip.
I definitely leave it up to the parents as to how much they want to embarrass their children. So, yes.
So, manners-wise, is there stuff, I have a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Is there something I can start teaching them now? Please, thank you.
That eye contact is so
Eye
key.
contact.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I have parents every year that sign their child up, and they say to me, and they're just so emphatic. They're like, we teach our children these things at home, and it's like they think I'm going to pass judgment on their child's manners or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And I'm the mom of 3. I get it. And so I think one of the biggest misconceptions, it's not necessarily that I'm teaching a whole lot of things that maybe you haven't taught at home or maybe you haven't, said to your child at some point along the way. It's more that you know how children are. They always put more stock in what someone else says. So I know
true.
my 3 children do. I mean, my son, if his football coach or his wrestling coach says something to him, it is gospel.
Yes.
If I say the same thing, I know nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So
How dare you?
Exactly. So I do think it's just another avenue to really just reinforce that which parents are already
Do you ever do
saying
it
in the
for
home.
adults too?
I know. We're going to need some
Like
of these
proper-
classes.
Oh, it's so funny that you asked that. Years and years ago, right when I started, I had a parent who ran a small company here in the upstate, and his sales force was very much one of their primary jobs a lot was to dine out with existing and potential clients. And so he asked me to come in and do a dining etiquette lesson, which I did. I just sort of did it on the fly, and we just had a local restaurant cater it in his boardroom, and it was for like 8 people. So I will not say I never have done it for adults, but I haven't done, I don't do it widely.
Yeah.
I've done a few dining things, and I think I've done a couple of dancing things for adults.
What are
but
some
nothing
tips
major.
for adults?
Well, you'd be amazed. The parents, I have chaperones at every single event, and I think probably the one I get the most feedback from, Ashley's already spoken to it, is my dining etiquette. I have parents at the instructional meal, and a lot of dads come too. So a lot of moms and dads who do work for companies where their jobs are involved in dining, if there's any kind of dining out or anything like that, they will often make the comment, gosh, I really wish I had done something like this when I was younger, because it would have made me more comfortable in my current job or a job I used to have or something like that. And so I do believe that from a practicality standpoint, I mean, my first job, I'll be honest, I got hired right out of college for Bank of America. Well, at that time it was Nations Bank. Went through a training program for commercial lending. They, at times, took customers out to dinner, and they would take the analyst, like myself, out with the loan officer. The concierge at the bank never wanted to assume that any of us had any manners coming out of college, fresh young 20-something-year-olds. So the first thing we did as part of a extensive training program, which had to do with mostly with financial things, was they took us to the 59th floor of the corporate center in Charlotte and gave us table etiquette, in a business setting.
That's great.
And so that stuck with me because it was something that my mom always emphasized growing up. And I realized, wow, this really does matter in what I consider the real world. So I definitely think there are some things that I do that could benefit a lot of folks. You know.
I was definitely not taught. I mean, like my blue collar, workers. It was. I mean, it's like, which TV tray shall I use for my microwave meal?
So I was like reading about it and said, if you're on a business dinner, don't bring home leftovers. Is that true?
You know what? I would have to look that up, but that probably sounds
right.
There's a lot of rules in business etiquette. And the funny thing is, etiquette has changed. I mean, here's the weird thing, or for me, it's weird. I guess it's a little sobering, frankly. When I first started teaching, I taught a whole lesson on telephone etiquette, literally how to answer the landline at the house.
Right. I used to have to
I didn't
answer
even
a certain
think
way
about that.
when I was
Really?
little. I
Right.
used to have to say, what did I say? Something about, hey, this is Jen. Not how may I help you, but it was like,
Well, in my house, it was,
rehearsed.
Dilworth residents. This is Angie speaking.
Yes,
and
okay,
then
maybe
it was like
that.
at least it was something like that. I always had to say, this is such and such residence, and then it was, I was of the generation when call waiting was introduced, and you had to go through there's literally an etiquette lesson on how to answer call waiting. I mean, my children don't know what call waiting is,
Right.
And so there's a lot of, electronic etiquette has become a very big thing, and so I've had to take what I used to teach and very much bring it up to date a little bit, especially with texting, electronic messaging. All of that is very different these days.
What about punctuation?
Well, punctuation, and like even with our scouts, I have to remind them, like, because they'll do the you instead of the YOU. And I'm like, when you're talking, hey, just quick feedback. When you're sending an email to an adult, this isn't a text message. You need to write the whole thing out.
Well, we do, especially with my older students, we talk a lot about tone and about certain, if it's greater, and I'd have to actually look at I have a lot of my notes that I don't have them all memorized, but if it's more than a certain number of words, it really warrants a phone conversation versus a text conversation. A lot of folks, that's the generation, is they don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's another complaint that I hear from parents is how to break that habit. And it's very difficult. Again, mom of 3 teenagers, I know how hard it is.
Right.
Getting them to answer the phone is, to have that conversation. I teach my older students as part of their interview lesson to please make sure that they have, the recording for voicemail. There's going to be, you're going to apply for jobs, or you might, you know, have someone that wants to call you for something and it rolls to voicemail. You don't want the cutesy, hey, what's up, leave a message kind of thing. You want to have a professional sounding, when you get to that certain age, you want to have a professional sounding, especially I talk about girls. I said, girls, if you're going to go advertise around the neighborhood that you want to babysit, you want to sound like, the responsible person that parents would want to leave their children with,
Right.
So
Right.
it's just, those are the kinds of messages that you just have to remind them. And it's definitely evolved from when I started teaching this, 22 years ago. So
Landline.
Any other tips that you feel like are helpful to either adults or children?
I feel like Jen's going to get her private lesson.
Yeah.
Well, as adults, and I'm sure you ladies can appreciate this, probably if you ask me, everybody said, what's your biggest pet peeve? For me, it's the lack of RSVP. One of the things we talk about is how do my students get an invitation to the ball and they're required to respond. And
in writing.
In writing.
Yeah.
Now, that's a little bit old-fashioned, but at the same time, I think promoting the written skill. Well, my older kids get to actually check the box more like at the wedding, wedding response kind of thing. But I want them to, it's more the exercise of being courteous and responding. And I tell them all the time, I said, if you have a party, don't you want to know how much food to have or, how much space you need or something like that and what kind of games to have. And they all seem to get that. But, you talk to adults. In fact, I had a friend call yesterday. Her daughter's recently engaged and they're starting to plan the wedding. And she's already got anxiety about the folks that won't respond, and because her venue is like limited and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's still a very real world issue. So, that's one of those things that I think never goes out of style,
Do thank you cards go out of style?
No.
No?
It's never too late for the thank you card.
No, and I try to impress that. They have to write me a thank you. I mean, again, most of what I do is not required because I know these students have a lot of work in school and they're busy and all of that. But I do try to provide incentives. So, for example, after our Holly Ball event, which is our first little social dance event, we introduce the thank you note. And I try to suggest to them that you make it, you keep it short, you make it simple, and you send it soon. You don't need to, you don't need to write, paragraphs as a thank you. I don't want it to be an intimidating process for them. 3 or 4 sentences is plenty to say thank you for something. And it's very meaningful for someone to receive something in writing. So if I give them stationery, if they mail it back to me, the first ones that hit my mailbox, I bring a prize to them the next month. So it's just one of those. If they don't do it, there's no penalty. They just don't do it.
But if you do it, there's a prize. Yeah.
And trust me, there's definitely some, prize-oriented children.
I was going to say, Bennett would be like,
yes, they'll do anything for, a special candy, or something. Yeah.
But you always word your emails. Angie always words them well because, we especially for where they have to do dancing, it's like, please RSVP if your child will not make it because you have to, you have to make sure the ratio of boys and girls is right.
For me, it's more for planning purposes, especially, I want Cotillion to be as good of an experience as possible for every student. And having adequate dance partners and making sure, that all matches up is important to me. And what happens is if I find that I'm going to have a lot of girls absent at a particular event, which there are years. There's a soccer tournament in, I believe, Alabama every year that conflicts with my spring ball. It just is what it is. And one year it might affect a lot of boys, and one year it might affect more girls. And so my older students, my 8th graders, I will often, a lot of those students go to schools that require some service hour opportunities. And so their parents are looking for those things. So I'll send out an email and say, hey, I need 5 boys to be dance partners for the 6th grade event. And you'd be amazed at how many will volunteer and come in and just not having to have, I do teach those children how to cut in a circumstance if we do have unequal numbers, because obviously there's always a last minute illness or something that can happen. But I make every effort I can to make sure we have a balanced ratio, because I do think that makes the ball experience better.
So what time of year do you do?
So the Cotillion season starts for the most part, for most of my programs, every September and ends in March. Again, it meets once a month, so it is designed to fit on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's even
Okay.
Super easy.
Yes, it's super easy. I actually teach 2 Sundays a month. I have 2 schedules. One's what I call an early schedule. It's either a 2 or 4 o'clock class, and one's a late schedule for a 5 or 7 o'clock class. And so, generally speaking, if you're a family that does like a travel ball situation, they'll often choose the later classes because it's more likely that they'll be finished with their activities or back in town or something. And then folks that have evening church commitments on Sundays will often choose the earlier. So I try to offer different options. Again, once a month. My 8th graders actually start the end of August with the back to school pool party. That program, the 3rd year program, is a little bit different than I take them to the theater. We do theater etiquette. We go in a theater. We go to BMW. One of their biggest outings for 8th grade is one of their favorite outings is we go to we talk about transportation etiquette and dating courtesies because again they're getting ready to go into high school, and just to make it fun, we go to the BMW Performance Center, and we talk about these things as our lesson that night, and then BMW is gracious enough to pull out about 4 or 5 of their we call them the fancy cars. And the boys get to practice putting the girls in the car.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's
really cute.
As a dating courtesy, opening the car door, not making sure they don't slam the dress in the car, making sure their foot's not in the door, all that. And then we have, because we do a little, just for fun, we do a little bit of international etiquette because we're at a German company. So I share some just fun, this would be considered bad manners here, but it's perfectly acceptable in this country, or or vice versa. And we have like a German buffet. They have a nice cafe there that they cater to our group, and so we've been going there for years. And so that older group gets to do what I call some field trips together.
Fun.
And we go to see the Christmas show every year at the Greenville Little Theater downtown because they do an excellent job, and that's just more to practice our theater etiquette and just have some fun as a group that night. So I do some fun stuff like that. But so their programs, I guess the schedule's a little bit different, but for the first 2 years, the younger programs start September and end in March, meets once a month. January for the year 2 program, the 7th and 8th graders that are in that program, January is the only month they meet twice because their instructional dinner, the one that I referenced earlier, it is its own event, so to speak. So it has to be on a different night than their regular class. But we have, for the 6th grade program, it's 5 classes and 2 balls. The balls are where we put into practice everything we've learned in class. We have a semi-formal ball, which is our holly ball, early December. And then we wrap everything up, usually the 1st or 2nd weekend of March, which is also really great because here we are in May, and I refer to it as mayhem,
Yes. End of the school year.
Yeah. So parents are thrilled to check the box on an activity in March, and that gives them April and May to kind of take something off their plate. So.
And registration.
And then registration starts back up around March. I do re-enrollment for my existing students and give them a little priority with their legacy siblings in March. And then open enrollment begins every April for the season that starts coming up. So if your child's a rising 6th grader, they'll enroll the spring of their 5th grade year.
Okay.
So,
and if you want to plug where that information is.
Okay, so my email address is Angie.Mosley, that's Mosley, at NLJC. That's the abbreviation, National League of Junior Cotillions.com. So it's Angie.Mosley at NLJC.com. My phone number is 289-0762. And anybody that wants to get in touch with me can contact me that way. And I do have a website. It's through our national www.nljc.com. You have to navigate through the actual chapters because we're part of a larger organization.
Right,
but if you find Greenville, there are 3 of us here in Greenville area. We're all part of the same organization, and my location is on the east side.
Yep.
Okay, great.
So
we're going to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to be busting in. Get ready because we've got John and a bunch of his friends.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
So they have scouts at 4, so they're all going to Cotillion at 2, and then we're carpooling over to scouts.
Absolutely. That's how
so
it's
they're going to go
done.
learn how to eat, and they're going to go and set things on fire.
That's wonderful.
I think it's
You
great.
want well-rounded children.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for
You're
joining
welcome.
us.
You're welcome. I appreciate you
Obviously,
having
my
me.
kids are a little young, but that's something we're going to have to do.
Yes.
For real.
It's
it
good.
gets here very, very
does.
quickly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
well, thank you again.
welcome.
And we want to thank our sponsors real quick. Pearl Dental, Wilson Associates, Parham Smith, Arch and Hold, Blackacre Law. So thank you,
know.
everybody, for your support, and we look forward to seeing you next time.